I'm just going to show you some aspects to think about, and then I'm going to basics. So I'll show you some things to think about now. Since you all will be the leaders in this the first contact palliative care and cancer care, you will be receiving these patients in your day-to-day practice. So you will have to know what are the risks, what are the conditions, and now we spoke about how to manage and all most of the conditions and emergencies and all. Basically, what I want to point is that you will be getting uh, several types of patients. One is already registered palliative patients that have been classified as palliative and agreed upon to be palliative. The paradigm is palliative. So the palliative discussions have been done, and the patient and the caretakers, everybody know this. The patient is in the palliative pathway. There have been new palliative patients who we have just decided on the clinic or the consulting oncologist or the physician who just decided that it need to be a new palliative patient, and there will be a lot of gaps in knowledge and all those aspects that will affect the primary care physician also. So the other type of patients are the palliative patients with COVID-19, that already non-palliative patients who have had COVID-19. Now that's a different set of problems. And there will be patients who are terminal, needing palliative care right now because of COVID-19, not because of anything else, but COVID-19. Because COVID-19 is also serious illness. So, what the problems in the already registered palliative patients and lecture, and I would just like to point out several things that you might need to think about. Say, for example, you have to understand as the primary physician and the leader in the team that these people face a lot of financial issues, and they are difficult to find amenities, or however much we advise, it should be practical for them to achieve those things. And about the nutrition, and about the about the emergencies and all, people tend not to come to the hospital until the last moment. So they have to be educated. If you see this, just come. Don't worry about the COVID-19, but this emergency will kill the patient. So that sort of thing has to be done. Those aspects has to be thought of. And of course, the risk to the palliative patient, the COVID-19 risk to the palliative patient. These palliative patients, people, the patients with cancer and terminal illness, their immunity is very low. So they are a high risk of getting severe COVID-19. And the risk is vice versa to the healthcare worker also. If you or your subordinate, say the PHN or any nursing officer or some other person goes to visit them, or they are at constant contact with these people, they are at risk of getting COVID-19 from even the patient. So, just wanted to highlight a few things about basically I told many of the solutions also. So, I just wanted to point out this. You have to formulate a strategy for support services, and think about the strategy for nutritional requirements also. Evaluate what they already have, and repeating feeds. I mean, say the repeating the same menu is acceptable in this circumstance. So the family members should be empowered on say wound care, best of prevention and all, more than what we did earlier. So the danger signs of emergency should be taught. We have to evaluate their comprehension level, and according to that, we will have to act. So, telemedicine is a good option in this circumstance. So, basically, to make yourself available, or your subordinate to available themselves to be contacted, say in an emergency, or many of the things can be managed if you have a good good attendant at the patient, say a good caregiver with the patient, good brainy caregiver, you can train them to attend to many of the issues. So without touching the patient, you can use telemedicine a lot. Now there are WhatsApp, Viber, and so many other modalities that you can have even a video. So here, what I want to emphasize is that COVID-19 risk to the patient is, say, we must always discourage them having big gatherings in their houses, and sanitizer must be placed at the entrance to the house as well as to the entrance to the room of the patient. Or if now if they are from very poor backgrounds, they should be kept in a separate sort of a area, even physically separable area, to so that people just can't go in without washing their hands or cleaning their things. So everybody should wear a mask. The patient as well as the caregiver should wear a mask when they are attending the patient. And N95s are good, but we have to look into the financial aspects as well. So again, telemedicine methods, just think about those things. And new palliative patients, the problem is that they're now when we go into the palliative pathway, a lot of changes happen. The mindset is different, as well as the drugs are also a little different, and they give a lot of side effects and all, but they all fade away. So the knowledge about those things and the obvious anxiety of facing the palliative challenge, and that should be addressed. Now you all will be facing with those problems. For a smallest thing, they will come to the primary physician. So, and of course, the thing is that when these new patients come, they are from unknown neighborhoods. We don't know the risk level of those neighborhoods. So the COVID-19 risk must be evaluated. Excuse me. Then I just wanted to show the trajectories. This is how terminal illness usually slowly go down and then comes down at one point. So palliative patients are mostly like that. So with COVID-19, the terminal phase will be shorter. If you take a COVID-19 sort of illness, pneumonia will get them early. So palliative patients with COVID-19, the third type of patients, they present us with a certain specific set of questions, like where to quarantine them, and we are, as healthcare workers, we are at risk, and the possibility of not recovering, of course. Say that's why I showed the earlier trajectory. Say now that might be certain and fast. So you have to you may not have time to refer and all. Maybe you will have to attend to the terminal condition and even help in the grieving process also. So those things have to be thought of. So this might happen, this slow decline and COVID-19 and death. And Dr. Hirosha Nadilavidas, I showed you all these fact sheets that we made. So I have uploaded these several times into the chat. So please download them. At the end of the lecture also, I will upload all these. One of the responsibilities of us as medical officers is just to make sure that these things happen at the household. So these are in all three languages. Then I would like to go into now wound care. We will talk about wound care in the next modules in depth. So I will be presenting one of the basic lectures done for us by Professor Mandika. I have got his permission to deliver this. So basically, a wound is a break or opening in your skin. Why we talk about this here is that as medical officers, one thing we need to know this in depth. The other thing is that you to supervise your subordinate, you must know the basics and advanced concepts of wound care. So I'll be giving a basic concept as well as some advanced concepts in this. This is just a conceptual lecture. Hands-ons will happen later. We have planned for those things. So you must know the stages of wound healing. So this is a very clear demonstration of such how it heals. So basically, wounds heal despite bad care. So to take stages of wound healing, if you know the hemostasis and then proliferation, hemostasis, inflammation, proliferation, and maturation. So those are the 4 stages that are shown here. That will go into depths in later lectures. So just look into those things. You have learned these things in surgery as well as in pathology. So say what I want to show here is that wounds 99% of the wounds just heal, because the natural response to a wound in the body is to heal. So say 99%, say 90%. So the rest of the 10% have a problem. We just have to address that problem. Only if you address the correct problem, it will heal. So finding out what is the reason behind non-healing, the chronicity, is where your scientific knowledge comes in. So that's where the pathophysiology, microbiology, and the anatomy and all those things come in to play for those 10%. And most of the wound healers, they run on those 90% wounds that heal anyway. That those wounds will heal despite bad care, despite anything. So our problem is that these 10% are chronic. So you all know what the burden of chronic wounds is psychological, and it's the burden to the family health and the healthcare system, everything. So actually, this is what this is one of the take-home messages. Wound healing is not magic; it's a science. Everything you learned in your medical school comes into play. Pathophysiology and anatomy, microbiology, everything comes into play. Nutrition, everything. All the science are clinically woven together into wound healing. So, wound biology and wound assessment, that you must understand. So, stages of wound healing, I told you earlier. Hemostasis. When a wound happens, the cultures come and there will be hemostasis. And then there are a lot of factors that get involved in the hemostasis process. The first thing is to stop bleeding. Then there will be inflammatory cells coming in. Then there will be proliferation because the inflammatory cells secrete certain factors. Then in proliferation stage, a lot of blood vessels will be proliferated, a lot of other cells will be proliferated, and then they will lay down collagen. Then there will be remodeling and collagen maturation. So this will take, depending on the wound, this will take maybe 3 months. The proliferation and up to proliferation, it's and remodeling, it's a shorter period. But even say the maturation that will occur during 3 months or 1 year. So that is natural repair. And what about chronic wounds? Why don't they heal? So, can be repeated injury, desiccation, microbial or mechanical problem, uh, maybe weight bearing. So, why don't they heal? Okay. So, these 4 I's: injury, infection, ischemia, and immunity. Those you have to think about. So, uh, what are the danger signs when you see a wound? Say a new wound, if it's a deep wound, if it's a contaminated wound, if it's in a immunocompromised, if it's in a, if the patient has had chronic wounds earlier, amputations earlier, if the patient doesn't have lack of pain sense, deformities, and if the patient doesn't have pulses, you have to act quickly. You should not keep that patient long. Maybe you must try 1 or 2 times and then you must refer if it's not working. But seeing must be very frequent. And the late danger signs will be increase the microbial activity, that means exudate, odor, color, quantity is increased, pain, fever, cellulitis, necrotic matter, pus, and lack of progression. Now, the important thing here is all these things are taught in the med school, but lack of progression is new. Lack of progression in wound size reduction is a danger sign. If you see, if you are seeing the same size, if the wound is not improving, refer, ask for help, ask somebody who knows better, because it's not going anywhere. Because you have not, that means you have not figured out the correct reason. So what to do is that we will uh, discuss later, actually in a different lecture. This is a broad topic. So what depending on what's there, say necrotic matter, pus, whether to debride or just irrigate, and or if it's a mechanical thing, whether to offload, that sort of thing. So this very complex diagram shows just trying to say a few things. If there's a chronic wound, you must find the cause and treat the cause. The cause can be one of these things: ischemia, neuropathy, any one of these vasculitides. So you have to think in these paths. So the other thing is patient in general. You must address the patient as well. You are not just treating the wound. The wound is on a patient. So the patient must be comfortable. The pain control, nutrition. He must be mobile. He must attend to his work. He must continue his job, and he should be independent. And if there's a psychological burden, that should be relieved. And locally, and finally comes the local thing. You have to manage the wound. That we use the time concept: tissue, infection, moisture, edge. So that's where the dressings and debridement, everything comes. The wound care is not just treating the wound. That's the take-home message in that. So I will talk about the time concept in a different lecture, and even talk about a day on the time concept. Just remember, there's a thing called the time concept. Tissue, you have to manage the soft necrotic material and all, and I is the infection control, that even debridement and pus removal. So moisture regulation is whether to say if it's a seriously oozing wound, so you have to take out the moisture, and if it's a dry wound, you have to give moisture. So you have to manage the edge. The edge must edge must grow into the wound, and then it should close the wound. So you have to manage the edge also. So this is one important other thing that I have to uh, emphasize, that if you see a diabetic wound, especially the diabetic peripheral wound, you have to milk it towards the point where the wound is. You have to milk from the surrounding and see whether there's pus pouring out, because the wound might look red and healing, but there may be under connected to a pus pocket. So deep pus pocket should be explored like this. And debridement, and if you have you are treating a venous ulcer, you have to do the proper compression. And this what we try to say here is that you just see a small wound, but underneath there will be a lot of necrosis and pus in diabetes. And this is one of the ways that a patient found how to offload his foot to heal the toe wound. So offloading. So again, about the time concept, I think we will talk about this in a different module. So, as primary care physicians, what is different now? The say home-based care, and say we have to advise and direct our subordinates. What is different? So we must choose what we can manage and cannot manage at home or in our primary care practice. So that's why we must know the danger signs. Say, for example, if you cannot palpate the pulses, there are no other way of you to know unless you have a Doppler. But now the thing is duplex. Even Doppler is very misinformative at some points. So if you can't feel the pulses, you better refer the patient to a surgical clinic, not meddling around the wound. And definitely with dry necrosis and no pulses in a patient with a history of vascular disease, don't operate on it, don't cut it. Send to a vascular surgeon or the nearest surgical clinic. And say getting the necessities, this is about home-based care. So you can you should always have a list of things that if you're sitting at home, or say you're in your primary this thing, and you can always improvise. So for example, if it's really oozing the venous ulcer, you don't need big chunks of gauze. You can use a cheap alternative. So for example, you can use a sanitary pad. Sanitary pads are very absorbent, so you can always improvise like that. You can train the helper, train a caretaker, and in our primary care practice, disposal of clinical waste is always a problem. Better to burn them or discuss with a clinical waste collector. So when to refer comes with knowing the danger signs. So you must refer at the correct point. And one of the things that you can do is to collect a formulate and circulate a suitable set of advices to your, say, if you are handling a lot of patients with venous ulcers, you can circulate a venous ulcer advisory sort of a set of instructions. so that they can dress their wound at least 1 or twice and then come back to you when there's a problem. So this is just an example of what I have produced. So the other problem with cancer patients and terminal patients and palliative patients is the bed sores. So you must know the pathophysiology of the bed sore. You must know how to stage the bed sore. With the pathophysiology and staging only comes prevention, wound management, and selection of vessels. So that again is another lecture actually in a different module. So staging. The stage 1 is skin is unbroken but inflamed, you non-blanchable redness. The second one is skin is broken, epidermis and dermis, not the fat pad. So stage 3 is extends into subcutaneous fat layer. And stage 4 is you can see the insides. They say the bone. Usually it's the bone. The points come where the bones are projecting. So it's basically the bone. So these are the points you have to be careful about. So we have about 10 minutes now. So I'll just rush. So remember this this illustration. How your palliative or cancer patient is lying predicts where the ulcers might come. So just remember these points. And again, in this one, the sitting position also shown. So the other one is that when the patient is on the wheelchair, these areas. So prevention, you can advise on 2-hourly turning. You must advise your subordinates to look for skin breaches, and you should also do it. The pressure points must be monitored, and notice the redness early and moisturize those areas. And you can do the monitoring with telemedicine. Actually, get the photos. And this is just just to point out certain aspects of wound care during the COVID-19 pandemic. You must minimize visits. You can do it via telemedicine. And if you want to visit, or if you are going seeing a patient, make sure the household and the neighborhood they are coming from are a little safe. So if the patient is coming, better for them to use a personal transportation, not in the bus. If you are visiting, you must use a personal transportation. That is advisable. And PPE is advisable if you are visiting the household. You always use a PPE and prepare the necessary beforehand. And have contingency plans and always improvise. So social distancing, follow the hand washing and all. Where I want to emphasize one thing, that any other matters related to COVID-19, say refer the fact sheets that we have provided, that those advices are followed, whether those advices are followed. Advise them first and then see whether they are followed. So I will end my lecture here. So you all can contact me possibly with WhatsApp. I am happy. So